Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Behind the Seams podcast. I'm Nunzio Signori, and today I've got my director of hitting, Andrew Pezzuto. Pezzuto is a Hastings-on-Hudson, New York native. I like that. My sister lives in Westchester, actually. And a graduate from SUNY Cortland in 2012 with a bachelor's degree in business economics before attaining his master's degree from Franklin Pierce in sports management in 2015. He played for Hastings High School, where in 2006 and 7, they were New York Section 1 champions. And in 2007, they were also regional champions, 2007 New York State finalists. Andrew is also three-time All-League and two-time All-Section and All-State selection. He also played at SUNY Cortland from 2009 to 2012, where they went to the 2010 and 2012 NCAA Division III College World Series. And he was also New York Regional Tournament MVP, All-Region Honors, and ECAC All-Star selections while at Cortland. I was very impressed by this, by your bio, by the way. He also, in 2013, as a graduate student at Southern New Hampshire University, he served as team captain and earned All-Region and All-America honors. Later in 2013, Pezzuto signed a professional contract for the Florence Freedom of the Frontier League as an outfielder. As far as his coaching career goes, when I was looking for Andrew, I was looking for a guy that had really good experience working with college and high school ball players. And his coaching career was quite impressive to me for such a young guy. He served as a graduate assistant coach at Franklin Pierce University from 2014 to 2015. And in 2016, Pezzuto was on the Shippensburg University coaching staff as its primary assistant, where his primary responsibilities included team defensive work and hitting. He then served as a volunteer assistant coach at Northern Illinois University in 2017 and 18, where the team qualified for MAC championships. In 2019, served as a hitting coaching recruiter coordinator at Iona College, and he finished his collegiate coaching career up to this point at Marist College, where he was the hitting coach recruiting coordinator from 2020 to 2021, where the team ranked in the top 10 for NCAA in team batting average at .313 and team on-base percentage at .410. When I was calling his references, I called Iona and I called Marist, and I'm going to tell you, part of what got you this job was how well they spoke of you. And both of them said one thing: while he was here, the hitting was great. So that's really what I was concerned with. But I'd like to welcome to the show RPP hitting director, Andrew Pezzuto. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And obviously, I'm pumped to be here.
I'm going to tell you one thing about Andrew, a couple things I really like about him. One, he's in unbelievable shape. I fancy myself as a guy who's in good shape for my age. This guy walked in and he's ripped. I'm like, you know what? This guy has to be a good athlete. And he was a great athlete, as you could see by his honors. And I said, wow, if this guy coaches half as good as the shape he's in, I'm like, we're good. And when he started talking about hitting with me and I saw the passion that he speaks about hitting with, I was like, you know what? One time an athlete said to me, I always listen to what you say because the passion that you talk about when you tell me something, I have no choice but to believe you because you speak with such passion. And Andrew, I see that in Andrew. So today we're going to talk about on-plane efficiency, the importance of it, and what we can do to actually help improve it. So first, Andrew, if you could, please explain to our listeners what on-plane efficiency actually is.
One of the big things here is that we are trying to develop hitters in the best way possible. So on-plane efficiency is about being able to produce good contact with the baseball. And what I mean by good contact is we want good flush barrel contact consistently. That, after all, is the objective of hitting, is that we are trying to put the barrel on the baseball. A little bit more advanced would be that the pitcher is throwing pitches and they come in at certain trajectories. So on-plane efficiency is to be able to match your barrel on the trajectory of the pitch throughout the hitting zone as effective as possible. That is one of the things that I was really pumped at coming here, because we have the technology that measures the point of contact on the hit tracks. And then we have the technology that measures the actual swing and where the barrel is going through said hitting zone. And then we can see So this is honestly one of the greatest tools that I've seen in terms of how do we get a young kid to comprehend where connection happens in the swing, and then sort of getting his body to be able to reproduce those types of movements on a consistent basis. On plane efficiency is how well our body can basically replicate that move and that barrel path through that plane of that trajectory of the ball. Obviously, there's going to be a little degree in variance and whatnot, depending on skill level and strength level. But if we can do that more often than not, we're going to have some success.
So a lot of that, I imagine, when you're dealing with younger athletes, is a lot harder to nail down because of mobility and strength issues. We'll talk about that later. But your approach when addressing and optimizing on-plane efficiency, I know from watching you and talking with you and just looking at your work here that you focus primarily on attack angle, swing direction, and barrel path. So can we start with attack angle, and can you talk about a bit about each?
Yeah, absolutely. So attack angle is, we'll break it down even a little bit further, is that we have a swing arc, basically, is what's going on, right? So there's going to be a downward movement to the swing, and then there's going to be an upward movement of the swing. Where contact lies on that swing arc basically decides where my contact or the attack angle of that plane of that pitch, right? That's where we are trying to establish. If the deeper connection sometimes, right, my swing may be going downward. It could result in some ground balls. It could result in maybe some line drives or some backspin. If I get it out in front a little bit more, it could be a little bit more uphill. Those would be resulting in the line drives or the fly balls or potentially even some overspin. So that would be the real basics of it. Like if a kid is grounding out constantly, he may not even be necessarily, he may be intersecting the trajectory of the pitch on a downward angle, or if a kid, conversely, it's really steep and he's consistently top spinning baseballs, he might be cutting in, intersecting over the trajectory of the ball. So we're trying to look for something where we can establish the hitter that he is going through that line. And ideally for the kids, like high school age, we're looking for more of a flatter bat path, anywhere from like a 0 degree angle to roughly like a 15. Yeah, like it all really depends on the level of strength that they're having, but they're going to see more success in that angle range.
How does that differ from older guys as far as the degrees?
So the degrees in general, if you have more bat speed, my thinking, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, is that you do want to start to drive the baseball a little bit more, extra base hits, right? Balls in the gap. When you start to get working like the 10 to 15 to 16, 17 degree, you're going to more consistently get the ball in the air. We don't want to get the ball too much in the air where it's resulting in pop-ups, but there is definitely a more consistent line drive, gapped out approach. And if you bring even more bat speed, then you start to result in some home runs.
So that leaves us with swing direction and barrel depth. So let's talk about swing direction a little bit.
So swing direction, this is now, like if you talk about golf, right? The swing direction is like with your swing arc, if you let the ball get a little bit deeper as a right-handed swinger, right? If I let the ball get deep, I would actually hit the ball out to right field. If I got a little bit more out in front of the ball would go out to left field, right? So that would be a more advanced conceptual idea. Most often than not, though, with the high school kids, from some of the common things that I've seen thus far, is that our barrel physically is not covering the entirety of the plate. And that is more of I'd say a concern, because if you can't hit an outside pitch or something that's going to be called 3 inches off the plate, because your barrel physically is not there, more often than not, like your barrel is moving too much as a right-handed hitter to the left, and you're not able to cover a certain portion of the plate. You may not be able to cover breaking balls or something slower if you're geared up for fastball timing. So the swing direction is one of the most crucial things in understanding how our body organizes to bring that type of bat speed, but through the hitting zone, and then to be able to cover both sides of the plate and be able to cover speed differences.
That's great, man. Unbelievable. I do have to say, most of my expertise is in strength and conditioning and pitching. And It's so amazing to me at guys who are working on hitting because it's such a moving target. You're dealing with so many more variables. With a pitcher, he's got all the time in the world to do what he's got to do. He's really the only guy on the field. He's attacking, he's not reacting,
Right. And that's
So
something that we, as hitting coaches, like it is a very open skill.
it's
Whereas, like,
crazy.
as a pitcher, yeah, it's such a closed skill where if you work on your mechanics and you work on your strengths, you can hit your spots, you can throw it with the command that you want. Like everything is in your control. As a hitter, there is really the pitcher's dictating where the ball is going, he's dictating the timing. You have to be so adjustable in what you do. So your body has to even move that much more efficiently in order to be able to hit the fastball and then to be able to react to something off speed, to be able to know what a ball is, what a strike is, what is something that I actually can drive in plus counts, or something where I might need to be able to protect, like, because it's a borderline pitch, I might need to be able to spoil it off. So there's a lot more that goes into hitting. And I think that's what makes it the hardest thing to do in all the sports, but that's also why I enjoy it so much too, is because nowadays, like, you can basically, we have the technology where you can get nitty gritty. That's one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to be here, is because we have all the tech and we put it all in one place. So everything is right at your disposal. And this is something that I think it's the cutting edge. I've never had this type of equipment at any of the Division I stops that I've been at. Even in pro baseball, this is not really something that was talked about all that much. I think it's exclusive to these types of developmental places, and RPP it is there. That's for sure.
So speaking on the topic of being in a place where things aren't as general as you've seen them in the past, even in the college atmosphere, talk a little bit about how having a weight room right next to your hitting tunnel and how you can go out and just watch your guys. Like when we're talking about on-plane efficiency, right? A lot of that has to do, would you agree, with your arm slot, the slotting of the arm, and mobility issues and strength issues when you're talking about bat speed. All of these things transfer back to the weight room. And I do notice, you even said to me at one point, dude, my own exit velo and my throwing velo have shot up since I started working here, just from actually working out a different way. Can you talk a little bit about the importance to these young athletes that they get strong and they figure out not only what their lowest hanging fruit is in the tunnel, but what their lowest hanging fruit is in the weight room, and why it's so important for them to actually be more mobile and strong?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And again, coming here and then having my assessment done by Zach, who is probably one of the best strength coaches that I've been around thus far in my
I agree.
career, and he was able to pick up things that I never even knew existed. That, oh wow, like there is a mobility issue in my hip. There is a discrepancy and a imbalance from my right side to my left side. I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense looking back on it, is like why I'm having the inability to get the maximum hip shoulder separation that I was looking for when I was doing my own analysis of my swings. If you can unlock that type of mobility, like that's just basically it's an unlock. So,
Also knowing what type of a mover, are you dealing with a loose mover or are you dealing with a tight
right.
mover? With hitting, it's such a quick move in such a small amount of space. A lot of people think you always have to get loose, get loose, get loose, get loose. I personally feel like there is some degree of tightness that makes an athlete a really elite athlete. So a lot of times you think you could be overstretching somebody, or you could be trying to put them in positions that they're just too tight to get into. You might be destroying some of the things that make an athlete be able to, letting them slot the elbow better. And on the other side, you might have tight lats. It might be hard for you to get scapular retraction. It might be hard to get, the amount of space you need. It might be, you might have a poor slot. These things will affect the on-plane efficiency and how that bat's going through the path. I was just curious about how important you felt, because I just want to say, in our hitting program, people do not, just as in our pitching, people do not just come here to pitch or to hit. We feel like Andrew sits in on the assessments a lot of times of the athletes, because he can get a gist of what type of athlete is he dealing with, a loose mover or a tight mover, right?
Yeah, so that is also something that, like, if like you were saying with some of the scapular loading issues, right? I have a client right now that does have a difficult time getting into his scap, and that is unique to him, but it's not in the sense that it is his own problem or
Right.
correction that needs to be addressed, right? Everybody's going to have their own corrections and imbalances and lacks of mobility here or lack of mobility there. So if we can really pinpoint that, right?
And you
So with
and you
this
can
kid,
also go right into the weight room and say, "Hey, Zach, hey, Phil, Nuns, listen, this guy's having a hard time loading. Can we put him up on the table? Can we check this out again?" You know, the
yeah,
ability to
and
do that is huge, right?
oh, absolutely. I mean, I've used Zach already a bunch too. Like, hey, he does have a tight scap. Like, can we do some work just to get him to feel that separation, to get him feeling it, so that way it's able to translate over to the tunnel. So, like that type of stuff, that's great for me. Is that I have the access where I don't have to do everything myself either, and we're trying to tailor the program specifically for that kid.
That's called closed loop training. That is the entire principle that me and my partner, when we built this place, that was the entire principle of not having a kid go somewhere and hit and then somewhere and lift, and neither the two shall meet, because I don't really think that's an optimal way to create an elite athlete. So how does this approach attack angle, swing direction, and barrel depth? When you're looking at these, how does this approach different from, say, a high school player to a college or a minor leaguer? What are some of the differences, and how do you go about treating each athlete individually? As far as, let's just start with age. How does age play a factor in an efficient on-plane efficiency?
Yeah, so that's another really good question. And I think there are more thresholds, shall we say. It's not necessarily age dependent, but like as you do get older, you sort of do hit these thresholds. And again, the first most basic step is like if you're working with a real young kid, is you want them to be able to feel out contact. And I think a lot of the time is right now, I do have a 10-year-old client, and his barrel is running very right every single time that we swing. And it is a little bit of a strength issue, obviously, because he's having a difficult time controlling it. But
And he's
the
10.
degree, yeah, and he's 10 years old. So we're trying to get him to run his barrel through that line and not around the baseball. The more basic approach is that, like, you got to be swinging the bat in the right direction. So
Right.
you start from there as the most basic, and then we can start to move on to higher level things and adding layers to each piece. So once they start to understand the direction of their swing, now we can start to understand some barrel depth. Like, where does my barrel need to enter in order for me to hit the ball out in front of my body with my eyes behind the baseball, so I'm not getting dragged out, that I'm hitting the ball out in front, and we can do some damage. So where does the barrel need to enter? How long does it need to stay through the hitting zone? So that would be sort of the next progression in this, is once I start to understand where my barrel needs to be, right, physically, now I can start to play with my angles a little bit more. Now, do I want to hit the ball in the air? How high in the air? Do I want to hit it on the ground? Like, where do I want to try to make my connection? And then to be able to, in certain circumstances, right? Let's say I have a runner on third base, I need to get him in. Like, now I can play with my angles. And this is more of the college to pro level. You get a guy on third base, at the bare minimum, you're trying to get a sac fly. Or there's other circumstances where we are trying to hit and run. Like, to have that type of awareness and to be able to adjust my angles like that, that's great. But now you get to add another layer to it, right? Now you have a righty from a low 3/4 slot, and he's tunneling all of his pitches. His fastball's running, his breaking ball's sweeping, and he's got a changeup. I have to be able to match my angles and run my barrel through that line so that I continue to have my fastball timing to be able to hit the fastball deeper for me in my swing, but also have that adjustability where if it is a changeup or if it is a breaking ball, that I can hit it and my timing is a little bit off, that I have that margin of error. I may be able to either spoil something and get another pitch, or I can maybe pull it down the line for a single potentially. So like that's kind of the stuff a little bit more advanced, and you sort of see that. And again, like certain high school players, they're really advanced, so they can move on to higher level problems, shall we say. And sometimes it is not always it's a strength thing. Like they could just have really good body control too, that they're able to do what they want with their barrel. A high school kid, a college kid, a pro guy, it could be at different points. If we have one pro guy, his bat speed is absolutely, it's electric. So he brings speed and he can basically catch baseballs, and when they get caught, they go very far. So
right.
So what we're trying to do right now with him is that he actually did have a lower on-plane percentage, probably about, we'll say 40% to 50% based on the technology that we have. He was struggling a little bit. I think he hit around 200 in his first season of pro ball, in minimal at bats, granted. But again, coming off of this type of season that he had in college, it is considerable difference in the numbers. He didn't really have any extra base hits, no home runs per se. And one of the things that we were talking about was just like, wow, like the pro pitchers, like their fastballs, man, like they all have that extra life that in college they just don't have. All their fastballs. And if they don't, like if it doesn't have an extreme life, they either cut, they run, or they sink. He said, I faced so many sinking fastballs, nothing straight. And that's really what the on-plane efficiency is all about. It's like you are playing this game at like, especially the major league level, like you're playing everything within that last 20 feet of the
breakneck speed.
And the thing about this is that, your brain processes these trajectories up until a certain point, and then you go black. So like you've processed the trajectory, right? Of that, this is where where I think the pitch is going to be. I've got my plane. And then all of a sudden, like there's late break on the baseball.
Yeah.
So like that's where the game is won and lost, is to be able to execute your swing path, and then for the pitcher to be able to have that late break. That way he's missing the barrel slightly. It's either hitting it off the handle or hitting it off the end of the bat for some mishits. So that's where the game is won and lost at the highest of levels. Obviously, at the college level, you get a lot straighter fastballs because the arm talent at that point is going straight to the pros. So
this is where being able to create more space once you get to a higher level to buy yourself some more time. Also being able to decelerate that bat really quickly so you could check your swing at breakneck speed. I think that's really, that's something where the strong survive. I do believe once everything is happening at a speed like that, and you have to make decisions at the very last minute, you're swinging until you're not, right? So I believe that there is a strength factor into play as far as being able to decelerate that bat and maybe grab a take that may not be possible with a younger, less efficient, less strength efficient athlete, and also the ability to have the mobility to create that nice space so you can actually be in a good position at foot plant to actually have some more time to see what that ball is going to do at the last minute.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, again, that's one of the common things that I've seen with the high school guys, and just throwing off the machine and whatnot. Like the machine doesn't always throw strikes. So when there's a ball, sometimes the kid is already committed to swinging and the pitch is not a strike, right? And they've swung at the pitch and you've missed the pitch. And then you're like, was it a good swing? It's like the swing could have been good, but the pitch that just swung out was not good. Like it's just not physically, you can't hit it because it's not there. So
and physically you can't stop yourself.
Yeah. You don't have the ability to stop yourself. So one of the things that we do talk about is sequencing, and then the ability to generate speed late.
Right.
That's the big ticket item.
And the ability to generate speed late, that is part mechanic. That is a lot about training in the weight room and how much power and acceleration you can actually develop in the frontal plane. That's something we work on in the off season a lot. How quickly can you move through that crucial space where you have to actually make a decision? Because that's really where things are won and lost, So talking about the approach, before we talk about ballpark timeframes to see significant changes, you had mentioned something to me that was kind of interesting when we were talking about the approach. You said, well, sometimes you say there's a different approach if a guy's a speed guy, you said, or a powerful athlete. Can you talk about that a bit? The difference between a speed guy and a powerful guy, and how you would go correcting on-plane efficiency with these two different type of athletes?
Yeah, and I think this is really the cool thing, and this is something that we did in college a lot, is to be able to self-identify, like, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, right? So every college hitter is going to, essentially, they're going to classify themselves into what they do well offensively, what they don't do well, what they're able to do, what they're not able to do. And really, the more honest you can be in this self-evaluation, the more you can start to tailor your play style, and now you can start to hone the techniques that are needed in order to be able to do this. So I know that in college, we call it synergy. And at RPP, we have hit tracks. So basically, what these two things do is that it stores data of every single pitch that I've seen and the output that I'm producing. So now we can start to see patterns that are emerging. Is he consistently on pitches outside? Is he grounding out, popping up? Is he making flush contact? And the line drives to left, or the line drives to right, the line drives to center. So we start to develop trends. Now, with a speed guy or versus a power guy, when you get into college game, you have to be athletic regardless, right? So as a recruiter, like, we want certain guys to play certain positions. So a center fielder is going to be probably a little bit faster than, let's say, the right fielder. So that also comes into play offensively, right? So again, a catcher is going to be a little bit slower. First baseman is traditionally a little bit slower. So you got to understand, like, what type of athlete you are. Mm-hmm. And then there's your combination of speed and power. Let's say, like, a speed guy, for instance, like, he does have the ability to be able to bunt, be able to hit a ball to the 5-hole and potentially leg it out, or hit a ball kind of up the middle on the ground and have the shortstop range and beat out a throw, right? So I'm not necessarily concerned with the flush contact that they're making, because, again,
they have more options.
Like, you're going to, if you hit the ball good, more often than not, you're going to be rewarded, right? It's going to be your singles and doubles. So I'm not too concerned with that, but it's like, is the speed guy, is he popping up a lot? Like, that to me would be the issue. And honestly, this was one of the big things that helped elevate my game, because I am more of a speed player. My first year at Cortland, my outs were all in there. And I think I hit 280 that year. In all seriousness, the difference between going into my next year of play, when I hit 360, was that, yes, I was still making my good contact, but my bad contact was actually kind of on the floor a little bit more. I probably had about like 10 infield hits,
beating him
extra,
out.
And then I had a couple, I probably had about like 10 bunt hits. So I had about 20 extra hits that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But so just by changing my swing point a little bit. Yeah, making it a little bit flatter.
So differentiate for me the approach when you're dealing with on-plane efficiency with the speed guy. So what you're saying is, the fast guys that can beat things out, they have more options. They can make more things work. Whereas a powerful athlete like your catchers and your first baseman, they got to kind of put the ball in the air, and they got to kind of
we're trying to drive the baseball. So your attack angle,
how are you attack? Right. So you're dealing with the attack angle.
More so the attack angle. And actually, this was something that happened at Marist too. So I had an athlete, and he had traditionally been about like a 200 hitter, and this kid is about 6'4", and probably some of the most bat speed that I've seen, like, at the Division I level. And we got him to hit the ball in the air a little bit more, and all of a sudden his home runs went up and doubles went up, and he actually started to have more success too. I think he ended up hitting 312 that year as a first team all-conference player, just by changing the degree at which he hit the ball. If he hit the ball on the floor, he just wasn't fast enough for that. Like, for a miss hit, I'm saying that he just wasn't fast. He was thrown out.
Right. So when you're working with these guys, for guys listening, is there a ball? I know every athlete is different, but can you give me a ballpark time frame in which you generally expect to see significant changes take place? Like I said, it's going to be much different with a young athlete than it is with an elite guy. But can you give me a ballpark time frame? I know you probably start to see changes take place immediately, but considerable changes take place. What's a ballpark time frame for that?
So this is where it gets a little bit, as a hitting coach, like, we have to understand where the athlete is at. Like, so there's times in the season that we can do certain things. Right now, let's say that a kid that he's done with baseball, I wouldn't necessarily make adjustments, drastic swing changes with a kid that's still playing. Like, so if we're to say like the season's over right now,
same as pitching,
we're going to make some swing adjustments. Okay. So there's going to be movements that are going to feel different. So in order to basically start to feel comfortable with the movement, we're less concerned about ball striking, and we're less concerned about competing. And we're more concerned about ingraining the muscle memory of the new swing pattern and the swing or the sequencing of the swing. That alone, depending on the athlete, I'd say could be like 4 weeks, a month of just being able to ingrain a new swing pattern. And then from there, once they start to have that patterning down, they're able to repeat it. Then you start to work on the ball striking.
Great.
The ability to hit the baseball on the barrel, to be able to match my planes, right? To adjust my body angles, to match planes of high pitches and low pitches and inside pitches and outside pitches, to be able to cover all these hitting zones. So that's a skill in itself that it could take could take a month, depending on the athlete. So already we're at 2 months. Then you start competing a little bit. Now you're working on your timing, right? Of when I need to be able to get my swing off, to be able to adjust my timing based on certain pitchers who have different windups, slide steps, or things of that nature, different delivery speeds. Different arm angles like that. So now we're starting to compete a little bit more, and there's a ramp up time with that. That could take another month too. So you're looking probably about 3 months or so to see the results that are going to make a big difference, a significant difference for it all to happen.
Which is great for our college guys. I saw you work all summer, which is a 3-month program. I saw you working with our college guys, and now you're getting ready to work with a lot of our high school guys in the afternoon, which is another 3 to 4 months before they have to go. So we've got this time. We kind of program that out from when they have to be ready. I've seen you work with the college guys in the summer. I saw some pro guys. Nick Samilla was in here the other day working with you from the Pirates. See you working with high school kids, and I have to tell you, it's really great to watch you work. And another thing is, I can hear you talking to the kids, and I think that being part of being a good coach is being animated and letting them hear you. So I just wanted to tell you that I think you're doing a great job, man. I've been watching you, and I really don't have much to say. It's like, actually, it's a little bit of a learning experience for me too. So kudos to you for doing such a great job so far.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is honestly, it's been a blast so far, and I'm learning a ton just like you. And this is my passion, and I love hitting. I could literally do it all day, and that's what I do in my free time. Is I'm working on my own things to try to see if I can't solve some problems that may help somebody else in the future.
You know what? Don't ever stop being like that, because I've been doing it for a really long time, and I wake up every morning and I still feel like that. We've been talking to Andrew Pezzuto today, RPP Director of Hitting. If you want to come and check Andrew out, please come and see us. You can reach me at Nunzio Signore on Twitter. You can reach my facility at RPP_baseball on both Instagram and Twitter. The website is www.rocklandpeakperformance.com. I have a book out on velocity-based training, how to apply science, technology, and data to maximize performance. That's on Amazon for all you strength and conditioning coaches that are interested in learning more about VBT and how to change the force velocity curve of an athlete. And our hitting program starts very soon in November and December and January. Come visit the website if you want to find out more about it. Andrew, thank you so much for being with us today. I'll see you soon, because you're going to be popping in here getting ready to go. So thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome, guys. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Behind the Seams podcast.